Hello all, welcome to Make Your Own Hacker Gadget video series at Pentester Academy. Now in the last video, we looked at how to put the pins into the serial port, and in this video, now we are going to access the bootloader over the serial interface. Now this should be a fun exercise. Now, important note, as I mentioned, I have a couple of additional MR3020s which I am playing with. And in this video, I'm actually taking an MR3020 on which I have not yet installed an OpenWRT. So this is entirely out of the box and I've connected to the serial interface, right? For your case, this demo wouldn't basically be any different, right? The only difference is your firmware is OpenWRT. So keep that in mind simply because as we go ahead and boot up the firmware, the messages which we see on the screen might be significantly different for both of us. Okay, so let's go ahead. Now I have a Kali Linux VM and I've connected my USB cable. And here you can see the entire setup. I still haven't powered on my router, keep that in mind. And I've gone ahead and assigned my cable device, the Prolific Technology USB serial controller, to my VM. Now, you might sometimes find an unknown device being mentioned rather than, the actual Prolific Technology being mentioned in there. Don't worry. Just go ahead and assign the unknown device to your Kali Linux instance, right? So the first step, of course, is to locating the device. Let's look at the dev folder. And here it is, TTY USB 0 is what is going to be mapped to our serial interface connected to the router, okay? Now, we need a tool through which we can go ahead and interact with the serial interface. There are many tools you can use. Screen is one. I would prefer Minicom. So let's first configure Minicom. Now to begin configuring Minicom, just do a Minicom-S. Scroll down to serial port setup, hit an enter. Now if you notice, by default, the serial device seems to be dev TTY8. This is something we need to change. Put in A. And this allows us to change this. Let's make this USB 0. Remember to check that the bits per second is actually 115200, which is the config. This is mentioned on the OpenWRT website as well for the MR3020, right? This is important. Hit an enter. We go back here. Now you can hit an escape. And we can do a save setup as, and let's call this MR3020. Hit an enter. Right, now let's exit Minicom. Now, in order to invoke Minicom with our settings, it's Minicom MR3020, right? The name you gave to the config file. You'll find this file stored under etc Minicom, in case you'd like to delete or modify it. Hit and enter, there we go. If you notice, it says the port it is going ahead and monitoring now is dev TTY USB 0. Fantastic. Now let me power up my device by connecting the USB to my computer's USB. There we go. If you notice, we are now seeing a lot of debug traces. And if you're seeing this, congratulations, you've connected to the serial interface perfectly well. And now you're seeing all the debug messages, once from the bootloader, the kernel, all being thrown out to you over serial, right? We aren't connected over Ethernet. And actually over Ethernet, you can only access it once the device boots up and the network stack is working, right? This is way before that. So we can even go up In Minicom, of course, there are options to scroll up and down. You can figure it out. I personally just prefer the scrolling up, using the terminal here. Now, a lot of interesting and important information is in here, right? The first thing you notice is U-boot, right? U-boot is a very popular bootloader for embedded devices. And we actually even have the version of U-boot being used. After that, you have a lot of interesting information, DRAM 32 MB. Then you have, a couple of things which are happening in here. And then you might actually find that the image itself is being booted up, right? Starting kernel, booting AR9330, blah, blah, blah. And you are seeing a lot of interesting information now in here, the GCC version being used. And this goes on and on and on till the very bottom, where you might even see network information and all of that. If you notice, it actually tells you that the SSID, which was set by default, is this one. Now, you might notice at the very end, it just stalls, right? Now, here is the best part. On most devices, you can actually log in to the device. Just hit an enter on the device in here, and you should be able to log into the device. And this should basically have you arrive at a prompt. Now, in your case, if you're using the OpenWRT one, then this would actually throw you into the OpenWRT root prompt, right? Now, for TP-Link, the username is root, and the password is 5UP, right? Again, this is from the OpenWRT site. People have already hacked and figured it out. In later videos, I'll show you how one could have recovered the root password. Now, what we've arrived at this point is a BusyBox prompt. People not familiar with BusyBox, we'll take it up later. But in a nutshell, BusyBox is a single binary which in turn provides access to normal commands on Linux systems. So if you do a help, you'll actually see all the built-in commands like cd, continue, exec, exit, and stuff like that. And all of these are built into the single binary. It's been optimized. Not all, I would say, options of every command are available, just the bare bones ones. Now, you can clearly see how we've arrived from unboxing a router, getting access to the serial interface, and now logging into the router. And keep in mind, in my case, we are running the manufacturer's firmware, right? And we've logged in, and now we can probably do interesting stuff. Also, a lot of times the version of BusyBox itself could be vulnerable. If you check out version 101, you may find security vulnerabilities which you could exploit and do other interesting things in here. Okay. So now, what have we learned? Well, over the serial, we've logged all the debug messages. We've understood that U-boot is the bootloader. We have the version. We figured out, the kernel version and the GCC toolchain used to build it. We've logged into the router. We've seen it has BusyBox. We know the version of BusyBox, right? Most of this information would never have been made available to us if we had just stuck to the web interface of the router. Now, in the next step, let's log on to the bootloader, which may allow us to do other interesting things. So to do that, I'm going to reset my router real quick, and the place where it says booting in 1 second, I need to very quickly type in TPL to enter the bootloader. Okay, so I may fail, in which case we'll have to try again. So let me reset the router again. And there you go, right? I typed in TPL, all lowercase, hit and enter real quick, and it says Hornet. And this is basically our bootloader options. If you notice, it basically allows us to now memory copy, erase the flash, display parts of it, modify it, do a lot of interesting things in here, which we will come to in later videos. Now, the most important thing, of course, if you end up bricking your router, is to use the TFTP protocol in order to do interesting stuff in there, right? And many of these we will be looking into later. At this point, what you've done is you've booted, you've accessed the bootloader, and now you can do interesting stuff with it, right? So you can type in a version, and this gives you the version of the bootloader, which we found before as well. Awesome. So I think in this video, we've covered a lot of ground, and hopefully you should be able to recreate all of this in your own lab. I don't think anything we've done is that difficult that you would have any troubles or issues recreating it. So all the best, have fun, and definitely write to us on Twitter. We are SecurityTube, and I look forward to hearing from you about your experience with this. That's all for this video, my friends. See you in the next one. And if you're enjoying Pentester Academy, please do recommend us to your friends and colleagues in the InfoSec community. Thank you.